Okay, ji. So the objective of today's session is to do some comparative analysis of how we are progressing and what is the nature of progression of the developed countries. So according to this course, there are two sides of the world. One are developed and one are developing. So now we are comparing the two sides together so that we can see what are the differences or commonalities that are observable in while comparison. So the topics that we are covering today are actually three. First is what are the diversities in the common problems of developing countries. The idea behind is that the countries which are in developing state should have common problems. So we will first identify the common problems. Then we will show that there are diversities within that common problems. So the issue that it is pointing out that because of diversities, it is they are difficult to manage. Yani, the countries which are currently in the developing state, because they are not very similar to each other. So the problem that they are facing is that we have to find country specific solutions for their problems because they are not similar to each other. On the other side, when the developed countries were developing, they were very similar to each other. So that's why uniform policies were appropriate for them. Now, because the countries which are in developing state are not similar to each other, so what is happening is that we are facing issues in finding an homogeneous solution which United Nations can adopt for their problems. Second topic that we'll discuss is the case where we are comparing our current situation as developing country. So we are developing countries today with the developed world when they were in a similar stage. So we are looking at uh, to compare how we can learn from their progression. So we wanted to study here that if they grew from this situation, even though they grew a long time ago, so what are the lessons that we can learn, or what are the problems that are different? Then we are trying to answer one very important question, that is there a convergence or divergence? So we will define the terms at the end when we are studying this topic. So the main crux of this portion will be that why are we going to be developed or not? So the main meaning of this sentence is this. So these are the topics that we are studying today. So let's start with the first topic, first point. So I'm sharing you the table of characteristics of the developing world. Okay, and in that there are developed countries also. So the United Nations and IMF divide the world with respect to the HDI value. Okay, so HDI value is actually the index that is based upon three few indicators which are shown here. So HDI indicators, four stages of development. It is sometimes called ladder of development. So we divide the countries into four groups based upon this value. So it is a new HDI value, and HDI it is based upon the life expectancy value, mean years of schooling, expected years of schooling, GNI per capita, and GNI per capita rank value, and non-income and HDA value. So what it is doing is for the calculation of NHDI, this is the new Human Development Index. These indicators are used. First is life expectancy. We already studied what is the meaning of life expectancy. Then mean years of schooling means how many years the people have studied in the country on average. Then expected years of schooling. So what is the expected value of the schooling years that they will get? So this is the maximum value that they can go. Then GNI value per capita. So GNI value per capita is gross national income. So I will write it here. The gross national income. So GNI per capita is gross national income per person, and these values are given. So it means the numbers are very big for high developed countries and very small for poor countries. And then they rank in terms of minus NHDA rank. So it is a per capita rank minus NHDA rank. So how high they are with respect to HDA value and Gini value. Okay, and then non-income and HDA value. So other than income, what will be the HDA number? So if you can see it here, the noticeable points are that the the values of high developed countries, if you compare these numbers, there's not much difference. It's maximum 5 values. And if you compare the income, there are very high numbers. Okay, but when you compare it with the low developed countries, there's a big gap. So highest number here is 66.9 and lowest number is somewhere 48 and yes 48 47. So there's a big difference here. And if you see the income, there's a big difference. So the highest is 4,900 and the lowest is 176. So there's a huge difference. So what it is showing us that the rich countries are much closer to each other, showing similar characteristics, and they're enjoying similar returns. That's why they have similar values. While if you compare the even if you see the NHDA value, they are very close to each other, 8.03 to 0.93. But if you compare here, it is 0.47 with 0.14. There's a huge difference here. So this is the first point that we are trying to discuss here, that the countries which are in the low development situation, which are trying to be developed, have huge deviation in terms of their characteristics. And this is data of 2008. So if you come to the current situation, the gap has widened. So even if few countries have climbed up, but the gap has increased. So this is the first table. So next, go to the next slide. So the topic that we are going to study here is the diversity within commonality. Uh, so in this, the objective is to highlight the commonalities among the poor and developing countries. So this section will show what are the common problems that we as a developing country uh, face. So first of all, we'll focus on the common problems, and then the difficulties that there's still diversity within the developing countries that is causing problem in proposing a common plan for development. So if there is no common plan for development, then it will be difficult for the international community to find ways and allocate resources to move all developing countries together towards development. So if there is diversity, it means they have to make a plan separately for each country. The disadvantage is there that then it means it will be costly, first of all. Then secondly, there will be no common plan. So if there is no common plan, it means it might be conflicting with each other for one, and it means the resources will not be properly efficiently utilized because you need a separate plan for each of them. So then there will be separate allocation of resources, and then it means the international community cannot find a homogeneous plan that can help everyone. Next is, now we go towards the facts and figures. So first of all, the first major problem of the developing countries is that they have low productivity value. Today, what I recently found that the wheat per acre productivity of Pakistan is around 30 ton. But for the case of, in Pakistan, but for New Zealand, it is about 150. So the difference is that we are using same amount of land, and but the productivity is so low. They are using same amount of land and they are producing 5 times more. So that the amount of production with same amount of input will show the change in productivity. So here, let's move forward. And so 84% of the world's population. Let me set it up. Okay, 84% of the world population earns about 41% of the world's income. Means the major share of the world is earning less than half of the world income. It means they are not productive enough. This is because of the vicious circle. Uh, this term vicious circle, we will discuss it detail later on. So because of vicious circle, where they are their low education lead to low income, means they are in a circle where they are already low educated, which is leading to low income, and that low income is leading to, which is again lead to low education and low health. So there's a circle here. So what does it explain? That they are not able to get higher income because they are not educated, and because they are not getting higher incomes, they are not uh, giving higher education to their children, which is which is so they are not sharing a higher education. They are not giving higher education to the children. So it is what is happening, that they are stuck in a wheel where their low incomes is creating low incomes of next generation. So this shows growth and growth. So this slows the growth, and it is called economic stagnation. They are stagnant at a point because they are not saving enough so that they can spend it on the education of their children, and because their savings are not enough to be spent on income, spent on not enough to spend on education, which is reducing the potential income of next generation. So they are stuck in a position where they don't have any situation to improve the incomes. So if you see the chart, okay, so I have shared you the course pack, so the latest values can be seen over there, but it is generally following same pattern. As you can see that high income countries are enjoying more than 57% of world share. But if you notice here that the yeah, if you notice here that the major share of the world is living in South Asia and Sub-Sahara Africa, okay, and even if you add uh, East Asia Pacific, this is the major share of the world. where major population lives. So if you add their share, that is 6 plus 8 plus 15, that is 23. So the major portion of the world population, it is more than half of the world, is only earning 23% of the income. So why it is earning less than their population share? Because there is low productivity. So equality states that income should be equal to their population share. But the problem is that it is not equal because there can be many reasons, just like one of you stated that it is because of political agent hands. But uh, if you are productive, then you can earn and you can get that returns. But the political hands only do play a role when the political power of a developing country is not powerful enough. So if they are educated, then they will earn from their hard work and also earn from their political power, because they will get the political power because of their bargaining power that they will get because they are skilled people. So that's why their population share is more, but their income share is very less. If you go to the next point, it is talking about low levels of human capital, means they are less educated. So human capital means health, education, or skills. So these three terms can individually be or jointly be explaining human capital. So under 5-year mortality is 17 times more in developing countries as compared to developed world. What does it mean? That for the case of developing countries where the children who die before their first 5 years, so 5-year mortality means the children who die in 5 years of their birth are 17 times more in developing countries as compared to developed world. So this is too big. Means that even if in developed world 10 children are dying out of 100, means 10%, uh, 10 children dying out of 1,000 people, 1,000 children before their fifth birthday. And in developing countries, it will be 10 into 17, it will be 170. So that's how big it is. So enrollment rates are low, and the teacher pupil ratio is high in this region. So what it is say that there are very few children in schools. First, this problem, that is enrollment rates. Okay, just write it here. So enrollment rates are but even if you are able to reach schools, there is very high teacher to pupil ratio because there are few schools and teachers. So that's why even if we are able to move our children to schools, the problem is that there is also scarcity in number of students that we have in schools. So the table that is being shown below, you can note that the mortality rate is related with the education of the mother. So that's why they are important. So the mother's education is crucial for the mortality rate to improve. So if you can see the table here, the 5 countries are shown. And if you note that the on y-axis it is mortality rate of children, okay, and it is first birthday children. So and it is showing the education level of woman or the female or the mother. So if you note that if their education is lower, the mortality rate is higher, and if they get more education, the mortality rate gets down. So it means, what does it show? That there is high association between mothers education and children mortality rates. So So that's why we need to focus on increasing human capital, because first of all it will increase the productivity of existing humans, and it will also ensure that the health of the new humans who are coming into the world. So that's why it is very important. And you can notice it here, it is comparing 5 countries, and you can notice here that there is diversity between them also. You can notice here that, see, for the case of Tanzania, the secondary education mother is only getting this much of uh, mortality, but if you compare it with Philippines, it is getting this much low. So there are, it means that it is pointing at some other favorable conditions in Philippines. So that's why we need to focus on. Uh, so that's why it is pointing out the fact that there is huge diversity, and since there is diversity, it means you cannot tell everyone to get higher education till secondary or higher, but because if your target is to reduce it below 50, then the Tanzania and Bangladesh are not able to get it, or yes. So that's why there is a diversity here, but the problem is there and there is a diversity within that problem. Next is, it is talking about inequality levels and absolute poverty. Okay, so it is talking about that 20% of the world poorest only have 1.5% income. So if you join the 20% of the world poor people, they only have 1.5% of the world income. So they have nothing. So the 20% of the lowest income people would which are about 1.4 billion people. Okay, so 1.4 billion people are poor as per $1.25 a day. So you have discussed earlier that $1.25 is not enough to survive a month. $1.25 a day is not enough to survive a month. So you can imagine 1.4 billion people are surviving at this rate, at this rate. And if you add more points to study the inequality, it will only require 2% of the richest 10% to bring these people out of poverty. So it means the richest 10%. So the richest 10% people, if they only give 2% tax or donation, these 1.4 billion people can be moved out of poverty. So this shows how much inequality is there. So the 2% income of the top 10% is more than enough to help 20% of the poor people who are 1.4 billion people. Okay, so this is showing how much inequality or poverty are there. So if you wanted to study more facts and figures related to this problem, I will share you one link here, so you can explore that. Let me share the screen. So I'm sharing you the link of United Nations, where they have given recent discussions. So reducing the inequalities and poverty in the poor countries, and it will help you to stay updated related to the So let me open it up. So I'm going to share it. So this is a page by United Nations. So the Twitter handle name is World Bank Poverty. So if you log in Twitter and if you follow them, so they have shared lots of facts and figures related to how United Nations is working on removing poverty in many countries. Like for them, this blog is about uh, talking about inclusive future. It is talking about the solar powered projects. It is talking about the COVID and climate change in global poverty. So there are blogs that you can follow, and hopefully uh, you can find latest scenario and latest facts and figures in that follow. I will share the link in the chat so that you can follow that page and you can see the latest facts and figures related to that scenario. Okay, and there is one more animation that I'm going to share here related to the poverty. So let me open it up. And so this is one animation, and this software is called Gapminder. You can install it yourself, and in that software, what you can do is, let me go back to main page. So you can plot these type of graphs on, and these graphs can be converted into animated videos. So I want you to see the mountain graph so that I can show you. So in that graph, what I'm going to show is that I am plotting the percentage of people who are the number of people by income. So what does this show is dollar per day. So on x-axis, the data is dollar per day, and the extreme poverty line that I'm using a benchmark is $1.9 a day. Okay, so in year 1800, there were 89.7% people below this poverty line. Okay, here the red color is the it is based upon the region. So red color is Asia, and yellow color is Europe, blue color is Africa, and green color is America. So here you can see in year 1800, 89.7% had income less than $1.9 a day. So if I play the video, it will show you the change in the distribution with respect to the income of the people. So if you can see on the top, the years are increasing, and the people are becoming richer, and it means less and less number of people are getting are poor. So more number of people are going out. So first of all, Europe crossed it, and Europe and North America, North Europe and America. Then very few people from Africa, blue color, has crossed. But if you see till 1995, you can notice here that there are now two peaks. And what are the characteristics of that peak? The first peak which has crossed this portion, you can notice here is that there is almost no presence of Africa. Very few countries who has crossed, like South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, Algeria, Sudan. Very few countries who were there, and the major share is America and Europe, and few countries from Asia, which is Japan, Vietnam, Thailand, Korea, Australia. So Australia is also counted here. So, but if you see the other pole, the major countries are China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Vietnam, and then if you go down, then it talk about African countries. So major African countries are still below the poverty line. So till 1995, 32% people, 32.5% people had income less than $31.95 a day. And if you move it more forward, you will see that Asia has crossed, and major now by 2020, there is only 9.8% people who are poor. And what are their composition? very few from America, which is Brazil, Hyundai. So very few countries. Then major Africa is there, and then few countries from Asia. So what does it show? That the during the time Europe and America crossed it, but the Asia has recently crossed, but Africa is still lagging behind. So this is showing the inequalities and poverties across the world. So other advantage of this software is you can draw any line, you can follow this any poverty line like this, and you can see how many people are there. So if I say, let's say we make a new poverty line definition that is $5.9 a day. Still $5.9 a day, and still 40%, 30% people are poor. And how many are there? 2.36 billion. So if I assume that we go to $20 a day, 5.99 billion people are poor, according to that definition. So you can open that software and open this graph. First you can do is that you can make your own definition of how much income you think nowadays are required to survive a month per person, and then have a look that how many people have that much income to survive a day. Okay, so this will show you that what is the situation in the world. Hopefully this animation is interesting enough to get you focused and on expanding based upon your income, and then serving the community so that the incomes increase. So the red sign was talking about in the video. The red sign was talking about that during 1800s the data was not reliable enough. So it was saying that there are some doubts in the data, but later on that data was reliable enough, so red sign was removed. So there was no any association that was collecting data in year 1800, means 200 years earlier. So they got the data from reports or writers who gave any estimate value, or small research centers that were there in the Europe. So the values came from there. Okay, hopefully you understood the topic of high inequality and absolute poverty. So you found out in the diagram. Let me go back to it again. So now we talk about the diversity. So you can look at here that the America and Europe are narrowly distributed. So their distribution is much diversity in them. But if you look at the Asia and Africa, their variation is very long. They are starting from here, and they end up till here. So Asia is up here and Africa is somewhere here. So it means there is high diversity in Africa and Asia, and there is low diversity in Europe and America. Okay, go back. The next is high-income countries are center of high population. So the countries are not able to provide us facilities, and on the other side, they have a high population too. So what does it mean? That it is causing problems in managing the resources. Problem that is being discussed here. High population means the resources will be spread thin. On the other side, the problem is the resources are not being distributed properly. The population growth of the poor countries is 2.2%. So they are growing at 2.2%, and the rich were only 0.7%. So the problem with the rich country is only 0.7%. Means their resources are, the new people who are demanding resources are only 0.7% a year, but the new people who are demanding resources in poor countries are 2.2% a year. So there are many people coming. So this creates a dependency burden which is the proportion of total population ages between 0 and 15 and 65 plus, which are economically unproductive and counted in labor force. So what does it talk about that? The age dependency will be a problem for these countries, for the poor countries. So let me see if I can find any animation for that. Population. Okay, so let me open that animation. So let me open the point and let me show you animation for that. So here there is a ranking chart for people, children and elderly people divided by adults. So this is the data for the children who are 0 to 18 plus the people who are 65 plus divided by the people who can work, which are between 18 and 65. So we are now comparing the index and which countries have higher values. So for example, in 1950, the Saint Vincent, which is a small island, has 144%. It means that the children and elderly people are 114% of the elderly, 114% of it means that they are 14% more than the people who are workable, means adults. And then these numbers are shown. So if I play this video, you can see how these values are changing across time. So the now you will notice that the countries which are poor tend to rank higher in this chart. And you can see the more blue colors are here. The blue colors are from Africa, and there are some red colors which are from Asia. And by the end of 2020, you notice that no country from other than Africa is there on the top 20 countries. So what does it mean? That the poor countries tend to have higher dependency ratios. Means the population who are dependent divided by the population who can work. So the top is in Niger, then Mali, then Somalia, then Chad, Congo, Angola. So these are the countries which are on the top of the list. So this is talking about same thing. So population, and here you can see that the poverty of the region is shown in this chart. So we have already shown it in the animation. Next is there is greater fractionalization. So fractionalization means the significant number of ethnic, linguistic, or social divisions in a country. So the countries which are developing right now do face fractionalization problems. What does it mean? That they have significant number of ethnic, linguistic, and social means. They like Pakistan is fighting the problem of provincial fractionalization or linguistic or religious fractionalization. It creates internal strife and political instability. Regions within country clash with each other. It weakens the international relations. Half of the world's developing population is facing inter-ethnic conflict. It led to destruction of countries like Afghanistan and Iraq. So they were not able to grow because the fractionalization had equal power. Okay, so like in Iraq, there was Sunni and Shia were in equal power, so that led to uh, political instability. So this is the problem that is not there when the rich countries were developing. Okay. Next is large population in urban, high rural to urban migration. So we have already discussed that there is high population, but the problem with the developing countries is that major share of the population is now moving towards cities. So what is the problem? What does it lead to? Issue that now the focus is on developing the infrastructure of cities. Most of the people live in villages which have no access to information or markets, but the problem does not end here. The massive population is rapidly moving towards urban area, which is causing hike in resource delivery in cities like Lahore and Karachi. So the problem is that uh, in the developing countries, the major population share is in villages, but they are moving towards cities. So they are not able to provide them resources in the villages because we know that they are moving towards cities. So we are only focusing on cities. That's why what has happened is that the social service delivery is patchy. It means that the country's governance is only focusing on the city area, not focusing on the villages. So what has happened is there is a divide between the quality of service delivery in urban and rural area. If you see here is that for the case of Asia, South and East Asia, and yes, so more developed countries and less developed countries, you can notice that urban population is higher in developed countries, but uh, there is migration rate very high for developing countries. So this is another issue that we are facing right now. Let's see how many problems are there. So next is the large. Next we are going towards this. So low industrialization and manufacturing exports. Let me give you a brief background that the rich countries moved from agri to industry, then to services sector. But the problem is we moved from agri to services directly. We will study that in detail later on what is the problem, but this problem is being discussed here. The developed country only depend upon 1% on agriculture. Okay, so if you see the developed countries here, their agriculture share is very small, mainly because a country like UK, their land is very small. But America, they have huge land available, but still they are 1% dependent on it. The low industrialization in developing led to export of primary products. Now look at the share of industry in the developing countries like Africa. Their industry share is very small. Okay, like in Asia. So what has happened is because they are not industrialized, they are only exporting primary goods, which are agriculture based. Okay, and which are not expensive. So it means the developing countries are exporting things which are cheap, and the developed countries are exporting things which are services and industry oriented, which are very expensive. So what does it mean? That the terms of trade or the balance between cash payable and cash receivable, the rich countries are earning more because they are selling expensive items. So this is the problem that is faced by the poor countries. If they had developed their industry first, then moved to services, they would have produced the secondary goods or industrial manufacturing goods. So now you can see that there the service sector is very high for Asia, but the industry value is very small. But if you see it here, the developed countries has high service sector but also high industry sector. That's why they are able to produce expensive goods. Next is clear it up. Adverse geography. So the most of the poor countries are landlocked, like Afghanistan, and tropical weather is extreme, like in Africa. Since the weather is extreme, so the countries which are poor are living in extreme weathers or landlocked or tropical weathers. So it leads to many diseases like malaria. So whenever there is a huge shift in weathers, so there are few diseases that grow in that, like malaria or cold, fever. These economies have short amount of resource endowment, so they don't have any natural resources like Africa, or even if they have, they don't have ability to extract them, like minerals and labor. So what is the problem if they have extreme weather? Has few problems like extreme weather will lead to problems like unpredictable rainfall patterns, which will hurt agriculture or water supply. Extreme hot will evaporate water from soil, which will hurt, uh, will like erosion soil, which will hurt the fertility of land. Okay, and there are other problems like, so it will we will use more or of groundwater, which will disturb the soil bed. Okay, so these are the problems. So extreme weather is causing these many problems. So if you ask from any agriculture economist or any climate change personnel, they will give you more facts and figures related to it. That what are the detailed problems in these because of extreme weathers. Because now we have to uh, spend more on weather the effects mitigation. We have to protect ourselves from extreme weather, floods, uh, droughts, so or disasters. So we have to protect ourselves from it. So it will also damage crops. So the cost of there will be economic cost from climate variations that include like crops, cattle, humans, or buildings. So they will damage and we have to repair them. So these are the problems that we'll face if there is an extreme weather. Even though we believe that extreme weather helps humans to become more immune to diseases, just like African countries are enjoying lower mortality rate to COVID. But the problem is that their cost of maintaining social life is also higher. Okay, so I think last one is the underdeveloped markets. So in the countries like developing countries, there is no infrastructure of markets which were there when the rich countries were developing. There is no legal system. There is no stable currency. Their infrastructure of roads is stable. Banking system is not widespread across the world. The market information availability is not homogeneous. There is no concept of contracts in market. The infrastructure and incomplete information, these are problems are there for in the developing countries. And last is, I think it is the last one, yes. So last is lingering colonial impacts. So the countries which are developing right now, they have one common thing, that they were being ruled by any colonial regime like British, French, Dutch. So these countries are affected by the colonial rulers. Like uh, so British left different situation as compared to French people. So where the countries which were ruled by French, they had now different situation like in African countries, and the countries which were ruled by British, they have different situation like Pakistan, India, Hong Kong, and other countries which were being ruled by British. Some countries are still influenced by them even though they are independent now. Just like we also look for go to study in UK because we have some influence still that is lingering here. External dependency is a major issue for these countries because they, even though they went, they left us independent, but still there are some dependencies because there are some rules that are still working, which were developed by the colonial rulers. Hope it is clear for you. And if you have any questions, you can raise hand and ask it now.